I know I probably sound like a broken record at this point, but yes, I am way behind. And yeah, crazy life stuff has been going on right now. Again, I will update you as soon as I can, but it's all good stuff right now. Although, I mean, if we want to get into details about life, I had random stumbles where my phone decided to just blow up on me, and so I had that whole fun thing. And anyways, yeah, just little things like that. But either way, I'm here to review now. And of course, you knew it was coming, especially if you're in the indie scene, and if you're familiar with this channel, you know that I live in a mystical land called Oklahoma, and guess what? That's where this film takes place. So of course, you knew the review was coming. Alright guys, gals, and everything in between, I'm here today to review for you Stillwater. So Stillwater is a drama film with some thriller elements, starring Matt Damon and Abigail Breslin. And Abigail Breslin, she was arrested for murder, and she says she's innocent, and Matt Damon plays her father, and he believes firmly that she's innocent and is going to move heaven and earth to prove it. And so, now we have our movie. Okay, so, this film, one of the big elements of this film is it's called Stillwater. And Stillwater is a small town slash city in Oklahoma, and it's about 45 minutes from where I live. So I'm in Stillwater all the time, and it's just kind of weird seeing a movie taking place in such an obscure part of the world that I'm in with the mystical land known as Oklahoma. Kind of. This film calls itself Stillwater, and it should really be called South of France. Because I went in going, you know what, I'm going to review that indie film. Fun fact about this film, actually, is I applied to be on the crew for the film Stillwater while it was shooting in Oklahoma. Filled out all the applications, all of that stuff. Never got the job, but, yeah. I actually almost, as far as I'm concerned almost, was on the crew of Stillwater. So it was kind of neat watching it going like, oh hey, I almost worked on that. I don't know, that was fascinating. But this film really only takes place in the mystical land known as Oklahoma for about 10 minutes of screen time. Matt Damon's character lives in Stillwater, but it doesn't take place in Stillwater. He goes to the south of France. I believe it's the south of France. I'm an uneducated American. I don't know where in the world you hip European folk are. But it's in France, and he goes there, and he's an good old-fashioned Oklahoma boy, and he's in France doing his Oklahoma boy thing while in the French culture, so it's kind of a fish out of water thing while he's trying to free his daughter. Now, this film is a little bit disjointed. I enjoyed it. The best way I described it to people when I first got out of the theater was, I don't dislike this film, but I never need to see it again. That makes sense? It's a heavy-handed drama, and it doesn't really work narratively in the sense that it is two very different movies combined into one. Like, at one point in this movie, I forgot about the main story. So, how do I put it? Okay, for all of my gaming audience out there, this is like when you play one of those expansive RPGs, and you spend 6.5 hours on a side quest, and then randomly you realize you've not been doing the main quest for the past 6.5 hours, and then it jumps back to that. That's how this film feels. So it feels very disjointed in that sense. Because at one point it's like, I'm going to free my daughter, god dang it, I'm going to rid her name of that tarnishing sentence and all that, blah blah blah. And then all of a sudden it turns into a family drama slash comedy for like 45 minutes of something that's not related to Abigail Breslin at all. And then Abigail Breslin shows up again, and you're like, oh shit, yeah, that's right. She's like in prison for murder, and we just kind of stopped to play soccer. That's cool. It doesn't work. So, like I said, from a video game RPG standpoint, it's basically, they spent a ton of time on side quests. They forgot about the main quest. So all of a sudden, the movie just, you kind of get set into this family drama set in France, And then out of nowhere, it's like, oh yeah, that's right, we have this whole other thing going on. Which does a massive detriment to the film. This is nothing like the movie Taken, but I'm going to make an analogy with the movie Taken. The movie Taken is about 90 minutes, and you have certain beats that slow down to talk to certain characters, and it's like he has dinner with a character, or where Liam Neeson does, and then he goes and does the action beat thing. Okay, Stillwater, in between the dinner action beat and the action beat of just violence or drama, tension, thriller, whatever you want to call it, imagine stretching that out by an hour. It's just not necessary. So all of a sudden, that tension makes no sense. I get they're trying to go for a more realistic perspective, but it just doesn't work, because all of a sudden you're getting invested in all the normal everyday stuff, and then out of nowhere you're like, oh right, if this were a 90-minute movie, it would be an almost drama, hard-hitting thriller where he's pursuing the killer or things like that. And so that it just doesn't work, because the director, it's almost like he had so much of a vision that he packed way too much stuff into this movie, when in all reality it should have been about a 90-minute thriller. But again, maybe his vision is something totally different and I'm just not getting it, and I'm stupid. But that's how I saw it when I was watching the movie, is I was like, this didn't need that much, and also it doesn't work. It's a family drama and a thriller, and they don't mesh, because, like I said, there has to be certain pacing beats for you to keep up with that, and they just don't. That being said, I still enjoyed it. Matt Damon absolutely gave an Oscar-worthy performance. He completely killed it. There's scenes, like there's a scene with him in a hospital. It is so emotionally moving that it's so good. And so Matt Damon really carries this film. There is a really thrilling segment towards the end, but the last third, it gets dark. And I mean really, really dark. Where you're just like, doo-doo-doo, family, family, family. And then it's just like, welcome to the dungeon, motherfucker! Holy, what the hell? When did this happen? It just gets dark. And then it just kind of ends. And you're like, oh, well, okay then. Wanna watch something a little more uplifting after this? It's just one of those things that it's a really disjointed movie that I didn't dislike. So it's like I'm being really hard on the movie, but at the same time, there's a lot of it I really, really enjoyed. I really enjoyed Matt Damon's dynamic with the family in France. I really enjoyed his dynamic with Abigail Breslin. And also, Matt Damon plays an Oklahoman really, really well. The wardrobe, I laughed because when I was sitting in the theater, there were people who literally dressed like Matt Damon's character, but they weren't cosplaying, that's just how they dressed. So I got a kick out of that. But he plays the part very well. There's a scene where they try to get political, and they do their best to play it neutrally, and I feel like they should have doubled down and really not tried to play neutral on that one. It was a really perfect moment to just be blunt and honest, and they didn't. But, again, I enjoyed this movie. It was a fish-out-of-water story that gets really dark, and like I said in the beginning of the review, it is a movie that I enjoyed. I don't think it's a great movie, but I don't think it's a bad movie, and I never need to see it again. But I had to see it and review it because it takes place in the mystical land of Oklahoma. So I'm going to say that this film, probably catch it on a streaming service or something of that nature, like a rental. Alright guys, gals, and everything in between, did you enjoy Stillwater more than I did? Did you enjoy it less than I did? Let me know. If you're one of the fellow Oklahomans, let me know what you thought of this film. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I got plenty more videos coming to you. Also, shout out to Sonic in the movie for being product placement. Love you guys.